I just really feel like across industries, across jobs, people who just resist this for whatever their reasons are, and some of them are very good reasons, and I empathize with those reasons. I don't know what else to tell you. Like, you won't be employable. Like, it's a very, very brutal reality.
A couple different comments from some CEOs that are a bit brutally honest, so to speak, about AI and its impact. So the first one comes from Uber CEO Dara Khosrowshahi, who broke what amounts to an unwritten rule in tech this week. He did an interview on the very popular podcast Diary of a CEO, and he said he has personally heard executives privately admit the true scale of AI disruption, and then watch those same people go on TV and tell audiences that everything will work out fine, which is something we have talked about on this podcast. He said that he understands why they do it, because being honest about job displacement scares investors, drives up fundraising. However, he said he estimates that AI will eventually replace the work of that 70 to 80% of humans do, including in knowledge jobs within the decade and physical roles like driving within 15 to 20 years, which begs the question. He was asked, what do Uber's 9.5 million drivers and couriers do next? And he literally said, I don't know. Now, at the same time, we got some comments from PwC's US CEO, Paul Griggs, who told the Financial Times that partners who are, quote, not paranoid about being AI first will be replaced. And he said, quote, I don't think anyone gets a free pass here. An employee who thinks they can opt out of AI is, quote, not going to be here that long. Interestingly, PwC has cut 5,600 staff last year. They're shifting tax and consulting services into certain AI-powered subscription tools that, at least in the first steps of operation, work without a PwC person in the loop. So, Paul, I thought those are two pretty telling comments. I mean, we've talked quite a bit about what you're hearing behind closed doors, how people are not talking about this publicly. Like, is the dam starting to break here? Because 6 months ago, we wouldn't have heard any of this, it feels like.
Yeah, I just don't feel like there's going to be any way to avoid it. Like we've said before, every 3 months, these CEOs have to get on earnings calls, and it's getting really hard to not say out loud what they've been saying privately. So it does echo what I've been, trying to create urgency around these last couple of years, which is what executives are saying privately, telling me privately what they're going to do, and what they're saying publicly have been two completely different things for like a year and a half, 2 years now. Mm-hmm. And so this is, it's really where I'm spending a lot of my time. And, I'm going on a trip with my family coming up here, and I have long plane rides. And I think I'm going to use that time to just try and unplug and think more deeply about this, because you and I've shared a little bit, Mike, with you of the direction I'm going here. And I've actually had some conversations with some listeners at some big enterprises who are thinking about these things as well. And no names and things, but I appreciate their perspectives on this. It's very helpful for me to think this through. Where I'm currently at is I think AI forward managers and above, directors, VPs, C-suite, who have a deep understanding of AI capabilities, plus domain expertise and institutional knowledge, are going to be in good shape in the near term. Like, I think if you go all in on this stuff, you figure it out, and you can help design workflows and systems and integrate agents, like, you're going to be worth way more money today than you were yesterday. And your companies will figure that out. So I think your career prospects, if you fit into that AI forward manager and above, companies are going to be looking for that talent. I think professionals across all levels who are resistant to learning AI and evolving are going to have a very difficult time remaining employed where they are, as you highlighted with the PwC example, and finding employment in, once we get outside of the next 1 to 3 years. It is the brutal reality that I don't like it, but I just really feel like across industries, across jobs, people who just resist this for whatever their reasons are, and some of them are very good reasons, and I empathize with those reasons. I don't know what else to tell you. Like, you won't be employable. Like, it's a very, very brutal reality. And then my biggest concern is entry-level work. Like, I just keep coming back to this. I don't know what you're going to hire those people for. And I have some theories, like I have some ideas I'm at least working toward to try and crystallize in my own mind. And so I need time to think more about this. But I don't know the answer to what those people do when the layer above can do all the tactical work by just simply prompting a system. It can do all the things they would have done to learn, the administrative work, like all of it's going to be easily done by these models. And that's before we have the step change that's coming, apparently this spring. So I don't know. And then you mentioned, Mike, this National Bureau of Economic Research paper. I dug into this one a little bit. That was related. I had not seen this yet. Great use for Notebook LM. You and I both, Mike, you have a whole podcast, all of our episodes in Notebook LM, but it's a great summary thing for me. So I'll take these like dense research. So I'll just read you the summary that Notebook LM wrote on this. I thought it was really helpful. So 2026 National Bureau of Economic Research working paper examines how AI is transforming corporate productivity and labor markets. Through a survey of approximately 750 financial executives, the authors identify a productivity paradox where executives perceive high performance gains from AI that have yet fully materialized in official revenue data, which we see all the time. We talk about that. Like sometimes you got to look at like leading indicators, but it's not going to show up yet in like GDP or revenue within the organization. And then it said, while adoption is widespread, investment intensity and motivations differ significantly between large and small firms, with larger companies focusing on labor cost reduction, which is talked about. Despite concerns regarding automation, the study finds minimal aggregate employment declines, suggesting that AI currently functions more as a tool for task enhancement than for total job replacement. However, a significant reallocation of labor is underway as demands shift away from routine clerical roles towards skilled technical positions. Ultimately, the research suggests that AI-driven growth is primarily fueled by innovation and product development rather than simple capital deepening. And then the one thing I'll note related to this, Mike, is the audience of people they interviewed is from November to December 2025, so relatively new data given kind of the moment. But they are interviewing CFOs.
Yeah.
And while there are exceptions to the rule, the CFO is generally not the person I've been meeting with in enterprises who has the greatest comprehension of the moment we find ourselves in from a technology perspective, what these things are capable of doing. So they don't always have the highest degree of AI literacy and capabilities themselves. They're not pushing the models every day and finding business cases. It's not usually the CFO doing that. And therefore, those CFOs who you're asking about this might not even be aware of like the reasoning capabilities or the agentic advancements that are happening. And then when you think like the research was done in December, that was before like the Claude Code moment that basically changed everything, before OpenClaw, and like how much has changed just in 3 months. And so while it's always good to look at this kind of data, you do have to frame it with, okay, who were they asking? What is the AI literacy and competency levels of those people? Not that they're not super smart and super accomplished, but it's just not their job to be the one that's like staying up on all the latest model news. And so you have to, again, it's just information. It's good. Put it in the filing system in your brain of like trying to understand the context of where we are and how to talk to people in your organization, but it's not an end all be all. It doesn't mean that all of this is exactly true within your company or industry. It's a very dynamic place, and we need all these different perspectives, but you have to piece together your own story, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, one other thing that jumped out to me that reinforced a lot of what we've discussed over the past year at this stage is the PwC US CEO Griggs, who said basically an employee who thinks they have the opportunity to opt out of AI is not going to be here that long. I assume that's been very clearly communicated internally if he is telling the Financial Times that. If it's not, that's probably a good memo to get out this week. But I know that can read as harsh to a fair amount of people, but I really appreciate the honesty because I know behind closed doors, I know of organizations where people are already complaining about employees who are not embracing this stuff because they know they have to. And so it's not been expressed to them clearly that this is a condition of their employment. Whether you agree with it or not, at least the expectations are very clear. And I think that's more important than ever.
Yeah, it's like anything else in life. Like I mean, think about kids and stuff. Like sometimes you got to tell people the hard truth, and they may not get it yet. And it might be, in the case of your kids, it might be 5 years until they grow up and like, oh my God, my parents were right. Like,
right.
And I feel like this is kind of one of those situations where people don't want to hear this. And I totally understand that. Again, I complete empathy for how hard this is. And I'm honestly like how unfair it's going to be. But there's no we have no control of that. Like, this is happening. The models are going to get smarter. They're going to get more generally capable. They're increasingly going to do the tactical things you and I do for our work every day. And pretending like that's not happening, or that it's not going to affect you or your family or your peers, is just not a winning scenario. And I agree, like, as harsh as it seems to say what the CEOs are now, more increasingly publicly saying, I would much rather they just said it than pretend like it's not going to happen. And
Right.
I know plenty of enterprises and leaders who know what's going to happen and just refuse to publicly say it or to say it to their own people. And I just, I don't know. Like, I would really rather we just dealt with the hard stuff now and had time to be proactive about doing something about it than pretending like it's just going to be okay, because it always has been before when general purpose technologies came into the world. Like, we just figured it out. And it's like, that is either choosing to lie or being ignorant to how different this transformation is versus the previous generative or general purpose technologies.
Yeah.
And there's not much room in between that. It's one or the other, largely.